Hello everyone, my name is Cloris. I am from Brazil and I got my green card last year with BDV Solutions. Here's a little bit about my story. I came to the United States about 6 years ago as a tourist and I just wanted to visit and look around a little bit. I liked it so much that I decided to stay here. I went back to Brazil and I got my F-1 visa so I could come back here and actually live here and do things. Once I came back to the United States, I was working and studying at a community college in California. And I was working in the international admissions department. And after a couple months, after a couple years, I realized that I really wanted to stay in this country. So I started researching about options things that I could do in order to stay here. Back then, I was not qualified enough or had enough education to get one of those most famous work visas. And I don't really have a lot of money. I could not get an investor visa. So, after researching a little bit, I kind of ran out of options. And that's when, I started researching even harder so I could find other ways that I could stay in the country legally. And when I found BDV Solutions, it was not even called BDV Solutions. And I remember that back then they barely had hand green card approval. So it was really scary to me to see that, it was something that it was very costly for me. But also back then they did not really have a lot of people that had done that process and that I could be like, okay, this is a legitimate thing. And I was very scared, so I didn't do it. I waited and I started comparing the BDV with the other companies that kind of offer the same service. And I would look at how they respond to questions, how they treat their clients, even if their answers were the same, kind of the same answers for the same problems, because we're talking about immigration here, so it's not that they can make up rules. A couple of other companies, they would just, say things that me working in the international admissions department knew that immigration-wise were not really that correct. So after a couple months, I decided to invest in this visa with BDV. Back then, I was trying to move to a university, to change from a community college to a university, and the visa process was cheaper than a semester at that university. So to me, it was obviously so worth it. I applied to this job as a food prep in South Carolina, in Greenville, South Carolina, where BDV is located actually. So it was great that I was, so close to them. And I moved to Greenville in January of 2020. And I started working for this restaurant as a food prep in February. I worked for about 3 weeks before the pandemic hit the restaurants here and we had to shut down completely. I got my green card in August of 2020. So I was working for them for a couple of months only when I got my green card, and it was really nice. It was much earlier than I expected, which is not really common. But for pandemic, my process did not have an interview. But again, that's not BDV's choices or my choice. That was just how it was in 2020. I didn't really see myself, I never imagined myself working as a food prep, working for a restaurant. There were a lot of challenges. It was not, it was hard. It was really hard, but it was so worth it because today I have my green card and it's a 10-year green card, and barely a month after I stopped working for them, I got my new job, which is I am now an international executive assistant. And barely a month ago, in April of 2021, I bought my house here, which was pretty much the biggest dream that I had of my American dream when I first moved here 6 years ago. And I've been saving up all of those years, but it was so hard to do it without being a resident. It was so expensive and so bureaucratic. And I just waited. I learned that patience is the best thing that you can learn to deal with immigration in this country, because not every process is the same. Not every state is the same. Not every office that processes your applications is the same. So really, to me, it was really important to just know that I had the background of working with students, with international students, so I knew how specific and how hard it is to work with USCIS. But it's worth it if you're patient and if you do your part, and if you don't lie, if you don't keep anything from them, you get rewarded. And this is, again, like, this process cost me less than going to university. And now I'm a resident, I can go to university for much, much less if I want to. So, you know, it was just really worth it. After this 1 year, my life pretty much started from zero again, because now I am a resident, now I have my house, I have my job, and all it cost me really was this 1 year that I went off track from my initial planning of things that I wanted to do with my life. I never really dreamed about being a food prep, but it is what I had to do in order to achieve my dream, and I did so. So I am so grateful to BDV, and I am so happy that I was able to do it. And I encourage everybody that wants to do it and that has patience to do the same, because it's honestly the best choice I could have done for getting a green card and staying here as a permanent resident.